Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our weekly broadcast. It's Thursday at 10 a.m. once again. David Johnson here, CEO of Leo Crowdfunding, equity property crowdfunding platform. My normal resident co-host, Mr. John Corey, is unavailable today. Obviously, he's over in the States, as many of you know, and today is unable to make the broadcast. But our resident investment portfolio manager, Mr. Dal Ray, who's on frequently with us, is joining me today. Good morning, Dal.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good to have you here. And our special guest today, delighted to welcome Mr. Adam Howarth. How are you, Adam?
I'm fine, thank you.
Fantastic. And we'll be hearing from you, obviously, in a little bit on our special topic for today. So without further ado, let's just get straight into the today. So we normally have things like market overview and the special Ask John section. We've dispensed with those today, so we can spend more time on our special topic of health and safety in development with Adam, to give him. It's a massive topic, obviously a lot of detail. So we thought we would maximize the time with our guest. But we will, as normal, do a quick update on some things that are happening within the world of Leo crowdfunding. So first of all, if you have any questions, any comments, then please do add them into the Q&A, not into the chat box, put them in the Q&A, and we'll be able to get those answered. And I'm actually on the road again this week. It's the second week in a row I've been coming in from London. So I'm actually in Regent Street in our boardroom facility here. So started off this morning near Bedford, early morning train, a meeting earlier, and now static for our broadcast. So yeah, I'm enjoying the English weather with a bit of sleet and a bit of snow in different places. Travel down the train, but thankfully warm and cozy now, which is the best bit. So Dal, by way of update, then we launched Aldwick. So how's this one been going the last 48 hours?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, David. So Aldwick Road, Bogness, Regis, busy high street, located on a busy high street, very popular area for young families and professionals due to the high density employments. Target 5, those of you who may be aware already or not aware, very experienced developers with over 30 years of experience combined. So this is actually their third project with us, one of which has already paid out successfully, West Buildings. So you'll be able to access further details on this project. So it's a mixed use of HMOs, purchase, refurbished and rent as a emergency housing, projected obviously 15%, as you can see, return. We're looking at a 12-month term with a minimum raise of 100,000. So it's already, and this is day 2, we're at 57,200, so over 50% funded. So it's going well. Seems to be very popular. Obviously, as I mentioned, this is now the third project by Target 5. So you can actually access full project details by simply clicking on the project and downloading the equity offer document. And of course, if you've got any questions about the project, you can reach out to me directly.
Fantastic. And you say this has only been going now about 48 hours, and we actually only went view day last Thursday, I think it was. So normally we have a 2 or 3 week pre-launch build-up, but because Target 5 are sort of known to our investor base, we haven't really done any pre-launch as such. We literally went view deal, and then did one project webinar on Monday night, and then went straight into live for investment. So 20 investors already have invested in the project, which is great. And I love the emergency housing angle. This seems to be something that's cropping up more and more. You know, developers sort of with a social conscience wanting to help sort of those that need somewhere to stay. I think it's great when you can turn sort of commercial HMO mixed use properties into something that's actually providing value to local community. I think, Dal, this one as well. I know, Brendan, you're working away onboarding Waite's House. What's the latest on this one?
Yeah, again, very experienced developer, Creation Tech. This is now his fourth, or would be his fourth project on the platform. We're hoping to get this signed off by next week or the week after at the latest. Working very hard to get that through. It will be on the platform as coming soon. However, feel free to reach out to me directly if you are interested in this. And then when it is coming soon, you'll be able to actually record your interest on the platform as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know Hitesh has been working hard on this one. He's got a JV partner who's very, very experienced in these sort of bigger type projects. This is like a care home that's been converted into apartments. So excited about getting this one out onto the platform as View Deal and letting the investor base have a look at it. And I suppose the exciting news, Dal, is that yesterday, obviously I've been on the road. So obviously yourself and Brenda have been working away, making things happen in terms of the operations. And I believe Avon Valley was paid back yesterday to the, or their shares were bought back by Beaumont Homes yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. So any investor that's invested into Avon Valley have now had their funds transferred into their e-wallet. So you can access those funds, or if you want to reinvest, entirely up to you. So successful raise. Ed and the team done a great job, although slightly longer than anticipated, obviously due to the nature of COVID, etc. But you know, it planned out in the end, and we're quite happy with the results of it, to be fair.
Yeah, as you say, it was longer than anticipated. Obviously, I think most investors would have expected that given the circumstances and the environment. But it did pay out its priority share of 30% ROI over the length of the project. So I think the certain investors I spoke to are very, very happy that they've received their obviously initial capital and the projected ROI as per the equity offer document. So next week we'll go into details. We'll obviously are speaking directly to the shareholders on this. Want them to get all the information first. Full SPV accounts were sent to them a few days ago. So we want to make sure the shareholders are all up to date before we then sort of go to the public and explain everything that happened. But next webinar, we'll go into more detail. And then Shadwell Heath, I believe we're just waiting on Schedule 2. Been sent out to all the shareholder stroke investors. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that. And that will finalize this one. Schedule 2 signed off by the developer, PLMD, who I'm actually going to see after this meeting. I'll spend an hour or two in their office up in Stratford with AJ and the team. And once that's done, the share certificates issued, then that will be that raise sort of finalized in terms of the platform. So let's get straight into our special topic today. And thanks, Dal, for updating us on that. And you keep an eye on the Q&A. So health and safety, one of those topics that people perhaps don't get excited about, but is very, 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 very important. And delighted to have someone who primarily is a property developer, project manager, loads of experience in his own right in terms of property, but who also kind of specializes in or is sort of very knowledgeable around the area of health and safety. So Adam, delighted to have you on this morning. Hope you're keeping well.
I'm fine, thank you, David. I'm fine.
Excellent. So do you want to just take 30 seconds to explain your background, and then we'll get into our topic today?
Yeah, I say my company is H3 Property Consultants, and I do provide property development consultancy advice, and I do my own property developments. Through that, it became quite apparent that the CDM side of it, the health and safety side of it, is really quite important to actually get from A to B safely. So looking into it more and more to understand it from an investor and developer point of view means that you're going to have a good, well-run, well-organized development. So through that, then I got qualified as a principal designer, became a member of the APS, which is the Association of Project Safety. It means now that I'm able to manage the site, not just purely on a project management time basis, but can also do it from the safety basis, which as an investor and a developer, it is remarkably important. Very dry, bit boring, not lots of pizzazz, but if you don't get it right, the downside could be quite painful.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. And we're gonna get into this whole topic now. There's no other way around this topic but to put up slides. Adam, as we discussed it, obviously, you know, refer to different sort of regulations and publications, and so it is sort of, you're going to work through some slides here, but you're going to be able to give like an overview of the key points and then people can go back and watch the recording. This is probably a really good example of the value of the recording, because you then can go back and stop bits and have a look at some of the slides. So let's dive straight into the slides, and we'll go through these, and then we're going to finish up with some real examples of people who have actually fallen foul of this sort of health and safety measures, and hopefully that will hit home just how important this is. So yeah, Adam, so this is the construction sort of design and management. That's sort of what this health and safety sits under, this designation.
Yeah, the CDM 2015, which is what we're working to now, came in on April the 6th, 2015. It replaced 2007 CDM regulations. Basically, it's set there to set a format and set of duties that various people within the construction process need to work to in order to protect people, look after people, and manage the actual development safely. Now, a lot of that crosses over with good project management. There's a tangible crossover point. So it's there to assist in lots of different facets. If you just go on to the next slide, please, David. In effect, what people are actually missing is the point that says all building and construction work includes new build, demolition, refurbishment, extensions, conversions, repair, and maintenance. A lot of people think that, oh, I'm not on there for long, I'm only in there for a couple of weeks. It doesn't matter. It still has to be done, especially as the investors and developers that we're talking to now, we are classed as commercial clients. Commercial clients are the ones that have to make sure that we have all this in place. If you're a domestic client, like you're having something done at home, it's the principal contractor that has to deal with it, and it's their problem. But for what we're doing here, where you're investing and you're investing into the company, therefore you are the client, you need to know that this needs to be in place. You need to know that we've got all our paperwork and our duties are known by all. If you just go to the next one, please, David. As I've mentioned, basically we are what's coming on the platform, and what the developers are looking to do is we're doing, new builds, build developments. We're doing residential and commercial. We're doing commercial conversions to residential, HMO conversions, extensions, refurbishments, buy to flips, buy to rents. All these are things that we come onto your platform. Everyone can understand, they can see the time frame involved, but every one of them comes under these CDM regulations. And I would suspect a large proportion of people are just not either aware or think, oh, it don't matter, we'll just get on with it, until something happens and it doesn't work quite well, which is why the CDM regulation sets out the principles that of what duties are done by whom. So if you just go to the next slide, please. It breaks it down into the clients. Ostensibly, we are the client, the developer. The investor is the way that you work, David, that people buy into and get shares into the company. So therefore, you are the client as well. The client has a set of duties that they need to do. They could do them themselves. And if you've got the developer that is aware of them all, they can do that. It is another layer of paperwork, and it's another layer of knowledge that needs to be done, but it needs to be done to make sure that the developer is protected along with everybody else and the client, because we've understood our duties, and we've actually ticked those off as we've gone along. Part of the client's duties is then to appoint a principal designer. Now, the client can be the principal designer, but the principal designer will take a lot of the client duties away. That's very much, and the principal designer isn't necessarily just an architect or a structural engineer who designs. It can be somebody who is a trained principal designer.
Yeah. So can I just come and ask one quick question there? So we're saying that the previous slide talked about, all these different projects right down to simple refurbishment, buy to rent, flip, obviously it falls under CDM. Yeah. Are you saying that each of those requires like a principal designer? If you were just doing a simple refurb and, maybe adding an extra bedroom or a loft conversion, do you have to have someone designated as the principal designer to meet these regulations, or just so I'm clear on that?
The client can choose. The client can be the principal designer themselves if they wish, but they have to then take on. But they have to take on the duties of them. If they are more of a, hey, you know what? I've got my architect to design it. I've got my structural engineer to design my structural alterations. You know what? All my CDM paperwork and all that needs to be sorted out. My client duties dealt with. I'll appoint a principal designer. Now, in a lot of situations on the smaller version, it doesn't matter how big the job is, it's the same paperwork. It's the same hammer to crack this a different size nut, but it can be standardized. You can put a lot of these procedures in place that will then allow this to go ahead. So the whole purpose of the CDM is to actually inform people and make them more aware of the CDM. So once you've done it once, once you've done it twice, if it's a really complicated one, then you probably want to appoint your own principal designer. If you are competent and understand the duties of the client and the principal designer, it is something that the developers can take on.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So just going back, sorry, just go back.
Sorry.
The designer is somebody that is the architect or the structural engineer, and they'll have duties that they need to do. But as a client, you need to make sure that they're aware of them. The principal contractor, that is one where you have more than one contractor on the site. You need to make sure that you appoint one of them as the principal contractor. If you, as a developer, are engaging with all of them, then you're becoming the principal contractor, and therefore you must take on the principal contractor duties. So it's just, again, it's a structure. It's a structural set. Contractor works for the principal contractor, and the worker is usually a labourer. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And again, remind anyone if anyone's got a question or a comment, please stick it into the Q&A. No doubt it'd be valuable for everyone to hear the question or the comment if you have it.
So as I said, as developers and investors, you're basically the clients, and therefore you need to make sure that you're fully aware of the duties. As one of the client's duties, you need to make sure that you make everybody aware of that CDM applies. You need to make sure that everybody's aware of their duties, and you need to formally request that they have acknowledged that they are aware that we are working under CDM regulations. Again, it's a process. We can deal with that. Under the main point of the duties is we need to formally appoint the other duty holders. So the client must formally appoint a principal designer, or do it themselves. They must formally appoint a principal contractor. The purpose of it, we need to also make sure that they're allowed sufficient times and resources are allocated to not just design the project, which is what you would expect, David, when it comes onto your platform, but this is another element of it. You need to make sure that you've decided that you're building a house that can be lived in safely, it can be built safely, it can be maintained safely. It's not like creating an inverted shard, how you're going to clean the windows. So with a shard, they've got cranes all the way up to clean the windows. They've had to work out ways of how you maintain it, to live in it, to use it, and to maintain it at the end of it. So
yeah, this is that was the perfect part for John Corey to be here on this one, because he lives in London. He overlooks the shard, and no doubt he could have explained exactly how they do clean the windows because he watches them do it. But yeah, that's a very good point you make.
Yeah, and it's just making sure that when they design and we find out we've got to do foundations, the foundations, if they have to be 3 meters deep, we need to make sure that it's designed in a way that they can actually be built safely. It's not just, so it's having the safety element has an effect on the design, and that needs to be involved. That's where the client, if they have their suitable knowledge of the CDM requirements, they're able to guide the designers. If the designers are told we're working to CDM and they have acknowledged that, they should do all that for you. It's just making sure that we've covered all those points. We also need to as a client, ensure that we've got all the relevant information and is prepared and provided. This is known as a pre-construction information pack. Basically, all the information that you have as a developer that's been allowing you to do your development appraisal, all that information is passed over to the principal contractor, so they know what they're building. It's very similar to quite akin to a tender pack, but if you've given them everything, they know that any potential issues, they know about asbestos because we've given them an asbestos refurbishment survey. They know about where all the utilities are. They know where if there's any wells or any other issues. That also forms part of the tender pack as well. So there's quite a lot of overlap, but you need, if you're doing your development, you need to know this, and you need to pass this on to the principal contractor. Okay. We'll make sure that the principal designer and the contractor, they undertake their duties. They know what their duties are. we provide them with the information, and we make sure that they do it. That's a client's responsibility. So we need to make sure that the principal contractor is doing everything right on site. We understand what they're doing, and if they don't do it on site, there's a distinct, and you don't check it, manage it and maintain it, and you don't do site inspections, you don't check all the paperwork. If anything does go wrong, there is a possibility that it goes down the chain. It doesn't stop at the contractor. They can come after the developer.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other one is we need to make sure that every site has adequate welfare facilities. So you can't just give them a take all the plumbing out and take all the and leave them with no electricity, no water, nowhere to sit. You have to provide them with a cabin. You have to provide them with somewhere to have their site meetings, to have their snap or their lunch or their tea breaks. If it's a large site, you provide them with a drying room. These are standard welfare facilities that are set out in the CDM regs, and that is a client responsibility. So
okay.
you can pass that on.
And again, though, sort of bring it down, obviously for bigger developments, multi-unit developments, absolutely this stuff, but bring it down, say, to again HMO conversion. How would you provide welfare facilities if it's just if you take, for instance, Aldwick there, which is a simple commercial downstairs, upstairs been converted into a couple of apartments. When the water's off and the electric's off, I mean, it's off. So how at that level do you provide welfare facilities? You
can get your Portaloo, the old classic.
Okay.
Get one of those outside.
Yeah.
If everything has been totally cut off, then you can get welfare cabins, and people can actually get welfare vans. Where it's your normal work van, and you've actually got a cabin at the back that has hot water, and they can sit in. They can, like a double cab van, they can sit in that, or you can actually hire small little tin containers that has got everything inside it.
Excellent. Okay.
And if you're doing a larger conversion, as you just mentioned, David, you can actually isolate a room. And one of the first things you do, you get the water back on, you get the electricity, and that is the site office.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I know you want to go into a little bit more just to highlight the client, just so people are really clear on the definition of a client.
Yeah. Effectively, there are two types of clients, as I said on the slide. Commercial client is the one that undertakes such construction work as part of their business. So if we are approaching Leo crowdfunding and we want to raise funds, it is a business. We're not looking to raise it for our own personal house. So anything that is for a business, which includes to flip, to hold, to sell, that is a business. So therefore, as a commercial client, you have a set of duties that you need to fulfill. If you are a domestic client, then all those automatically pass on to the principal contractor to deal with. In the old days, people used to just think that, hey, you know what? If anything goes wrong, it's the contractor's fault. It's them that's going to be in the hock. I'm all right. I can sit back, put my feet on the desk. It's not a problem. Not anymore. So as a client, the duties are to make sure that all that management and everything is running smoothly, which you would do on your regular weekly, monthly site meetings. You make sure agenda 1 is CDM and health and safety. You go through all the paperwork, all the on-site work. And that is good project management of a development site, not just CDM. It does actually interact quite a lot. So if you are looking to invest, then ask the people who are asking for the money, what are you doing about CDM? Have you considered it? It should be part and parcel of a good project manager or the good project management of the site. You're on mute, David.
As I say, there, as clients, we sometimes learn the hard way. I can recall way back in my sort of early property experience as a buy-to-let professional. Myself, my wife Brenda have probably been involved in buying and selling about 100 buy-to-lets in Northern Ireland and Glasgow. But we had one which we owned as a JV in Northern Ireland, and we were connecting the water, which meant that the footpath had to be opened up. And of course, there was the contractor stroke construction person doing the work. They had a nice metal plate that had loads of cones all wrapped off. That was fine. I get a phone call one morning from a neighbor saying someone has claimed that they've tripped over the metal plate covering the hole, and that they've broken their leg. Now, the story in the estate was that she'd actually fallen somewhere else, and it carried her up and set her right beside where we had cordoned off. Cut a long story short, ended up with barristers at the High Court, and we just decided to settle for about 15 or 17 grand, because the possibility of going to court and losing that. But the interesting thing was, Adam, the guy who did the work, just disappeared to Australia, just vanished, which left us as the client, as the owner of the property, liable, which was rather painful. So yeah, if people think these things don't happen, and that health and safety and these things, can just be ignored, yeah, it's a big mistake.
Yeah, it can be painful, and that's why just checking and making sure that the right fencing is around the right thing, making sure people are kept away, making sure you've got photographic evidence, making sure you are covered for the what if moment. Yeah. And you sometimes you think, what the heck are we doing all that for? It'll be done in a day. Yeah, they could fall off a scaffold in 5 minutes. Somebody could trip over a hole because you just didn't put something around it. It again, yes, it is health and safety. Yes, it is paramountly important, but it's also is wrapped up very heavily in good project management of the project.
Yeah.
So very quickly, designers are structural engineers, architects, any specialists, M&E consultants, any specialist foundation or piling, they are the designers. And through the designers, you will make sure that they know their duties. You make sure that they have designed in accordance with what's called the principles of prevention, which is just, it's guidelines as to not do something like the inverted shard or everything like that. They've actually thought things through. Principal contractor, that is the main contractor that you will deal with. He is the man that will then manage all the subcontractors and all that, but your principal point of contact. He will be the one that you'll send all the information to. He's the one that provides you with the construction phase plan and all the risk assessments and method statements for that job. And you manage him and monitor him.
Okay.
Next page. The contractor is the subcontractors that work for the principal contractor, and then the worker is usually the labourer who's just wandering around, and they're the ones with the hoods up usually, and you've just got to tell them to, take the earphones out, watch what you're doing. But they're usually the ones that might end up with. It's just making sure that everybody is managing it properly, and it's like in anything, whether it's property or anything else, it's just being diligent. And because, as we all know, as we've just explained there, property can take a turn very, very quickly, and it's usually a behavioural scenario, and you can't change that. You can only put procedures in place to make sure everybody gets home safely, which is great because that means your development gets done properly, and you know that you can sell it and there'll be no comeback.
Yeah, and this day and age, I mean, when it does take a turn for the worse, I mean, it's usually bad. If someone's injured, obviously it's not what anybody wants, but if once someone gets hurt or someone has an accident, well, you're into a whole new level of trying to sort that out, and very often pain, if it hasn't been, health and safety hasn't been structured properly.
Yeah. So what can happen if we just don't bother? Say, oh, hang it, I'll be done in 10 minutes. If we breach of any of the duties that are set out for any of the various points, the HSE have got some big teeth now. As it says there, after the 12th of March 2015, they can pretty much fine you unlimited. And they usually go on a percentage of the company's profit. So if you're doing a development, that might be a quick buy to flip because you've got a gap in your program, but you're £1 million turnover company, they will base it on the turnover of your company. So it can be fairly painful. And if you have done all your client duties correctly, you are mitigating what could be claimed against you. If the principal contractor whose site you've handed over to, and they've done something wrong, but you have done all your client's duties, you've checked, you've done all your paperwork, you've managed them as best you possibly can, that will mitigate any potential blowback.
Okay. And yeah, I want to finish on this as we wrap up. So again, just last opportunity for anyone to ask any questions if they want, or make any comments. We'll finish in just in a minute. But yeah, Adam, this is what started this conversation, I think a week or so ago. You mentioned that you saw an article, and then we got into conversation. I thought this was actually really important to bring to the weekly broadcast. So yeah, to talk us through these two real life examples of people who fell foul of CDM regs?
If we look at the first one, the JNR developments, basically they just flaunted all their duties. They flaunted anything to do with health and safety. Now, the HSE aren't out there just to jump all over you in the first instance. This JNR Developments Limited had a number of enforcement notice, improvement notices, stop notices. It was turning into a bit of a catalogue of errors. So they ended up eventually falling completely foul of the health and safety executive, and the company was actually found for continual breach of the health and safety side of it. They were fined £32,000, and they were ordered to pay costs of £8,000. That's £40,000 for having a site that flaunted all the CDM rules, which is basically a really messy site. A good project and a good development will have a good, clean site. You can see now how working the two together, it all becomes as one. The running of a site and the development of a site with the CDM side of it is all one thing. It's not just CDM, I can't be bothered. Well, yeah, common sense, it should all be part and parcel of it. So yes, they did get fined, but the important thing was that they were continually warned. So the HSE aren't there just to slap you. The HSE there are to guide you. But if you continue to ignore it, they will bite. Yeah. So this other one on the right-hand side, it was actually same thing again. The principal contractor in this instance just continually just did it his own way. Couldn't be bothered. There were some underpinning issues next door. There was some slippage. There were some deep excavations that weren't considered. The risk assessment method statements weren't put in place. The neighbours raised concerns to the HSE, because that's the other thing you've got to think about. If you're actually surrounded by people, if you've got a messy site and you're not good, are not considerate developer stroke contractor, you're going to put everyone's back up. They're going to talk to the HSE. HSE will come, and then next thing you know, if you're not managing it properly, this is what happens. So, long and short of it, he was found guilty for dangerous excavation and dangerous site. Again, he was warned a few times. They kept on asking, and they came back, and he still had done absolutely nothing. So not only this time was he fined, he also had an imprisonment.
Yeah, which just shows how important this is. I think there are two really good examples to finish on, Adam, and hopefully the message lands home with anyone who wants to get involved in property development or refurbishment and all the different levels of involvement, that this CDM is very, very important, and that people absolutely need to be aware of it. I mean, some of the regulations we talk about, ignorance is no excuse under the law. No. If this is what you do and you're refurbing properties at any level, people need to be aware of this, Adam.
I mean, that's why from my property development and property consultancy angle, this became paramount. And now I can add this as one of my services to the property consultancy side of it. I can go in and set this up for people to then run. I'm there to educate people, to allow them to deal with this.
Okay, fantastic. Listen, Adam, I really appreciate that. A good in-depth look at that. And if anyone has any questions, they can get you on LinkedIn. I know they can reach out to you there on LinkedIn, and you'd be happy to deal with anybody one-on-one that wants to give a shout out to you. So listen, I really appreciate that, and no doubt we'll hear from you again in due course.
Not a problem.
So just to finish off then, next week, we're going to have Akin Obamakin, who is part of the Property Strategic Podcast, as I think they call themselves, or Property Strategist Podcast, to get that correct. It's Akin and a few of his friends really target the younger generation to try and educate them on property investment. So they've got like thousands of listeners to their podcast, all very much from the 20 to 30-year-old sort of age demographic. And Akin's going to be along next week just to talk about his passion for education to that age group, and how important it is that they understand how to grow wealth through property investment. Obviously aligns very nicely with what we're trying to do with the platform. And I'm looking forward to having Akin back on. I met him last week, actually. We had a cup of coffee together, last week in London Bridge when it was over, and I thought it'd be great to get him on. So that's next week, 10 a.m. will be Akin and about his special podcast. And Dal, has there been any questions come in on the health and safety? Or is everyone seems very happy that Adam's done a good job explaining it all?
Yeah, yeah, nothing. I think, yeah, absolutely. No questions at the moment, but obviously feel free to reach out if there are any in the future.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, Adam, again, thank you very much for joining us. And
Thank you.
we'll obviously be in touch in due course. Let everybody go. Have a great rest of Thursday, and we'll see you next week. All the best. Take care.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.